Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're dusting off a real gem, Young Rough Riders Weekly, specifically the issue from November 12th, 1904.
That's right, issue number 30. And the title is quite something. Ted Strong's Triumph, or The End of the Contest, really grabs you.
It definitely does. We're going to step back into that world, see what these Western adventure stories were all about back then.
Exactly. These dime novels, or weeklies in this case, they were huge. And this one gives us a fantastic snapshot. Heroes, villains, action, the whole package. We want to really, unpack it.
Okay, let's set the scene. The story kicks off with a group heading out for a hike up to Eagle Rock, I think.
Mm-hmm. Eagle Rock. You've got Tom Black, it's his family's place, Sunset Ranch, his sister Lucy, some friends, Sam Rading, Will Payne.
And Louise and Earl Rossiter, though Earl's not actually on the hike.
No, he's back at the ranch. Apparently he's been unwell. The text mentions fainting spells, even manic raving after some kind of nervous shock.
Right, so there's already a bit of underlying tension, maybe, or instability with Earl being out of commission like that.
Definitely hints at it. And his absence kind of throws the group dynamic off a little, maybe. It immediately sets up potential conflict right from the start.
Good point.
Yeah.
Because as they're climbing, things do get a bit tense. Louise Rossiter starts getting some attention from Sam Redding.
Unwanted attention.
Yeah, definitely unwanted. He's being persistent, and she's clearly not having it.
And she actually says, or thinks, she wishes Ted Strong was there.
Which is great foreshadowing. Establishes Ted as the hero, the protector, before we even meet him properly.
Absolutely. Tells you about Louise's character, too. She's capable, but knows when someone's crossing a line, and it positions Ted perfectly. You're already waiting for him to show up.
So Louise and Redding get ahead of the others on the trail, a more isolated spot.
And Redding gets bolder, tries to kiss her, getting more forceful.
But Louise is focused on reaching the top. Right? She tries to just push past him, keep going. There's this real struggle of wills.
You can feel that tension ratcheting up, her goal versus his, inappropriate advances. It's uncomfortable to read, honestly.
Yeah. And just as it hits that peak discomfort on this narrow ledge, bam,
Ted Strong arrives.
like out of nowhere. It's such a classic dramatic entrance.
Textbook heroic timing. Resolves that immediate problem, but, obviously kicks off a whole new sequence of events. Perfect for these serials.
Okay, so let's dive into that encounter. The encounter at Eagle Rock. Reading's cornered Louise, tries the kiss, she screams.
And then Ted appears. Not just appears, he descends the cliff face.
Yeah.
Using a lariat.
A lariat. His friend Kit Summers secured it up top. I mean, talk about flair.
It's incredibly visual, shows off his skills, his daring.
Yeah.
And having Kit involved shows he's got backup, that loyal friend network.
And Ted doesn't hang about. Sees the situation, boom, immediate action. Strikes Reading.
No hesitation. And then it's on. A full fight, right there on that tiny ledge.
With that drop just feet away. You really feel the danger. It's not just fists, one wrong step.
Exactly. Life and death stakes. It makes the fight feel way more intense. Balance is as important as punching power here.
The story gives details, too. It says Redding has some college boxing experience.
Right. Thinks he's a bit handy.
But Ted, despite just arriving, is described as having this cool demeanor.
He's focused. Reading hits Ted's neck, but Ted comes right back. Bloody nose for Redding, loose teeth even.
Ouch. They're struggling near the edge, and then Ted manages to throw him.
Yeah, sends him sprawling. A clear win for Ted. It's almost like experience and composure versus just, aggression.
And just then, Kit Summers gets down to the ledge
And makes that classic comment.
about the dandy backfall.
Yeah, a bit of dry humor right after a near-death fight. It kind of lightens the mood, but also reinforces how cool these guys are under pressure.
Definitely. Ted immediately checks on Louise, who's obviously shaken up.
Understandably. Pale and shaken, the text says.
Meanwhile, Redding's coming around, and he looks a mess. Bloody, swollen lip, bruise coming up, clothes torn.
A real state. And his first reaction, still angry, still aggressive.
You'd think he'd learn, but Ted handles it calmly, demands an apology. To Louise.
And he points out he knows Redding is Tom Black's friend. Adds a social pressure element.
That's smart. Makes Reading think about the consequences beyond just getting beaten up.
Louise says she'll accept an apology if it's genuine.
And Ted adds a pretty clear, though veiled, threat. Don't disrespect her again.
Reading finally mumbles something, sulkily. Doesn't sound very sincere.
No. And right on cue, Tom Black and Daisy Miller arrive.
Perfect timing again.
They're shocked to see Ted and Kit, and Tom's reaction to Redding's face is priceless. Says he looks like he came out of a carpet-beating factory.
Uh-huh. That's a great line. Vivid. And it just highlights how out of the loop the others are about what really happened.
Reading tries to cover, says he fell on the rocks.
Lame excuse.
Totally lame. And then, surprisingly maybe, Ted offers to help clean him up.
Which Reading accepts. Kind of grudgingly.
So it seems like maybe, just maybe, the immediate crisis is over. At least contained for now.
On the surface, yeah.
Yeah.
But Reading's humiliation, that's not going away, and neither is Earl Rossiter.
Ah, yes, back to the ranch. And the conspiracy takes shape. Earl might be in bed, but his mind is sharp.
Oh, yeah. He starts grilling Redding. Sees the injuries, the bad mood. He knows Redding didn't just fall.
He's perceptive. Doesn't buy the story for a second.
Keeps pushing, hinting he knows it was a fight. And then he reveals his own history with Ted.
This is key, isn't it? The backstory.
Absolutely. Turns out Earl hates Ted Strong. Long-standing thing. Jealousy over Ted's popularity.
Especially with girls like Louise it mentioned.
Right. And there was a lawsuit over mining lands. So this isn't just about Redding getting roughed up. Earl has his own deep-seated reasons to want Ted gone.
That makes his next moves make a lot more sense. Reading, feeling sore, and seeing Earl's hatred finally spills the beans.
Admits Ted beat him up. Admits he was fooling around with Louise.
And Earl pretends to be shocked. Like, oh, you didn't really fall?
Total act. He's drawing Reading in, making him feel understood. Classic manipulation.
And then Earl gets this sudden burst of energy. All his sickness seems to vanish.
Fueled by revenge, he's suddenly strong, eager to plot with Redding.
And his ideas are pretty wild at first. Tarring and feathering, stampeding cattle, even burning the ranch.
Yeah, he's really worked up. They eventually land on tarring and feathering. Still awful, but slightly less. Arsony.
It shows how intense his anger is. And then he reveals he knows Ted is visiting the ranch the next night.
And he plans to hire men to ambush Ted.
Reading, caught up in the moment, wanting his own revenge now, agrees.
And just like that, the trap is set. They're going after Ted.
Which leads us to a distraction and a deception. There's a dance at Sunset Ranch.
Right, a social event. Provides cover, contrast to the plotting.
Ted and Daisy leave the dance a bit early. Daisy asks about Redding.
And Mrs. Black, Tom's mother presumably, repeats the cover story. Oh, poor Sam fell. Keeps the deception going.
Then Ted and Daisy think about visiting the sick Earl.
To check on him. But Pancho, his servant, stops them at the door.
Says Earl and Redding are both fast asleep.
Convenient. Too convenient. Kit Summers is there too, and he's skeptical. Says something like he didn't want to see them anyway.
Kit's got good instincts. He senses something's off.
Later, Ted and Kit talk privately. Kit flat out warns Ted. Rossiter and Redding are up to something.
Ted hopes not, but he agrees Rossiter needs watching. Mentions some past trouble, something about a well in a barn.
Yeah, it implies Earl has a history of causing problems for Ted. This isn't his first rodeo with Earl's schemes.
And then, the linchpin of the deception, a messenger arrives. Urgent message.
Says Kid McCann sent him. Needs Ted back at Black Mountain Ranch. Right now. Army officer wants to buy cows.
But Ted's sharp. He immediately notices the guy isn't one of their regular ranch hands.
Red flag right there. You are not one of our own men, he says. He's suspicious.
The messenger gives some flimsy excuse. Daisy, Louise, Kit, they all try to talk Ted out of going.
They all feel it, too. Something's wrong. The urgency, the weird messenger. It smells like a trap.
But Ted feels responsible. Duty calls. Business first.
It's his strength, but also his weakness here. That sense of responsibility makes him ignore the warning signs.
Kit and Bob Martin offer to go instead. Ben Tremont says he's too tired, which seems also convenient.
Maybe Ben's in on it, or just genuinely tired. Hard to say for sure from this.
Ted decides to go himself, but tells the messenger to ride on ahead. Gives him a silver dollar, maybe a test.
Could be, or just a customary gesture. Either way, Ted's riding out. Right towards the ambush.
And now, the ambush. The messenger, Jim Sloan, he immediately drops the act once he's away from Ted.
Yep. Admits he lied, was hired, meets up with Rossiter and the others in a gully.
Rossiter's buzzing. Wants to know if Ted took the bait. Is he coming?
Sloan confirms. Ted's on his way. Rossiter tells Sloan, get the tar ready. Chillin'.
Reading shows up then, and he looks nervous. Having second thoughts about how serious this has gotten.
The reality is hitting him. This isn't just roughhousing anymore. But Rossiter.
Rossiter's lost in his revenge fantasy. Glee, the text says. Near insane glee. He pulls out masks for them.
Super sinister. Reading actually voices his fear. Ted's a fighter. He knows Ted won't go down easy.
But Rossiter bullies him, questions his nerve, threatens him. Make sure reading stays committed.
Rossiter's completely driving this now. He reveals the hired guns are from Roaring Bill's old gang.
A gang Ted put out of business, so they have their own grudge against Ted.
Exactly. Adds another layer of danger. Reading doubts their loyalty, but Rossiter claims he has dirt on them, can control them.
Cocky. Then Sloane calls out.
Yeah.
Tara's ready, and someone's coming.
Showtime. Rossiter hands out the masks. They get ready.
Ted's ordeal and resistance.
Yeah.
It happens fast. Figures jump out, guns fire, a blow to the head.
He's dragged off his horse with a rope. He realizes instantly it was a trap.
He fights back hard, even outnumbered. But they overwhelm him, tie him up.
Bound hand and foot. And then Rossiter steps forward, face full of hate and, joy.
Lays out the plan. Stripping, flogging, tarring and feathering. Utter humiliation.
But Ted stares him down, defiant, even tied up.
Rossiter makes a mistake then. Orders the bonds loosened slightly so they can strip him.
Big mistake. Ted sees his chance. He's fast. Uses his arms, strikes out, charges.
Ticks over the pot of tar.
Which catches fire. Suddenly there's flames, chaos. Ted grabs a burning log.
Uses it as a weapon. Fighting them off.
Yeah.
Incredible presence of mind.
Totally. In the confusion, he breaks free, makes a run for some horses he'd seen nearby.
They chase him, shooting. He grabs a horse but realizes it's slow. They're gaining.
He can see Rossiter, identifies the lead pursuer. He needs a plan, fast.
Spots a sharp turn in the trail. Uses it perfectly. Maneuvers his horse.
Causes the lead guy to crash. Brilliant writing.
Ted jumps off his horse, grabs the fallen man's gun and ammo belt. Now he's armed.
Changes everything. Rossiter and the others come around the turn firing. Ted fires back. Hits a horse, maybe?
But Ted's own horse is failing. He starts to think it's over. And then he hears it.
Hoofbeats. Lots of them.
The young Rough Riders.
Cavalry to the rescue. Just in the nick of time.
Talk about relief for Ted. He sees his friends, led by Kit. They ride right up to Rossiter's gang.
Rossiter, still furious, orders his men to attack, thinks they still outnumber them.
But the Rough Riders, silent, disciplined, waiting for Ted's word. Amazing loyalty.
Ted gives the command, open order, fire at the horses, tactical genius.
Then trot, gallop, charge.
They hit them hard, firing, then using their revolvers like clubs. It's a rout.
Rossiter's gang just breaks, flees in panic. Ted gives a whistle, calls off the pursuit. It's over. Swift. Decisive.
Total victory for Ted and his crew. But then they find Earl Rossiter.
Unconscious. Injured. A head wound.
And Ted, after everything Earl just did to him, his first instinct is concern.
Kneels down, tends to the wound. Kit is furious naturally. Let him be, basically.
Understandable reaction from Kit, but Ted shuts him down, tells him compassion is important, even now.
It says so much about Ted. He sends Kit for a doctor.
Even for his worst enemy. Incredible character.
Okay, the aftermath. 3 days later, Earl's recovering at Sunset Ranch.
His father's there. And Louise. Mr. Rossiter sounds disappointed. He's looking at Earl's debts.
Decides to send Earl away. Strict school back east, trying to straighten him out.
And Ted does something else remarkable. He drops his claim about some stolen cattle Earl was likely involved with.
Wow. Just lets it go. Mr. Rossiter is grateful, thanks, Ted. Even admits some blame for how Earl turned out.
Seems like maybe some resolution. But then Earl and Ted talk privately.
And Earl. He hasn't changed. Admits defeat, sure, but says he'll always be Ted's enemy.
That bitterness runs deep. Ted hopes he'll find a better path, even offers to shake hands.
Earl refuses.
Yeah. Ted leaves him there. The fight's won, but the hatred, at least from Earl's side, remains.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Ted Strong's triumph. Quite a ride.
Definitely. You see Ted's courage, his quick thinking, his fundamental decency.
Contrasted so sharply with Rossiter and Redding. Their jealousy, their need for revenge. It's ugly.
And the loyalty of the Rough Riders, that really stands out. True camaraderie.
Big themes here. Justice, forgiveness, or the limits of forgiveness, maybe, and how destructive revenge is.
Absolutely. And while this particular contest ends, Earl's parting shot shows that some conflicts, some rivalries, they just smolder.
And the story sets us up for more. The preview for next week's issue. Ted Strong in Kansas, or The Trail to Fremont.
Introduces a Professor Cowenhoven. Sounds like a friend at first, but maybe not. Keeps the readers hooked.
Always another adventure, another challenge for Ted. These writers knew how to keep people coming back.
They really did. This issue gave us a satisfying conclusion to the Rossiter plotline, for now, but teased enough to make you want the next one.
So the final thought to leave folks with,
Yeah.
based on Earl's refusal to let go of his hatred, is real reconciliation always possible? Can every enemy become a friend? Or even just neutral? Or some grudges just too deep?
That's a heavy question. Something this old adventure story still makes us think about today.
Definitely something to ponder. Well, thanks for digging into this slice of history with us.